Disclaimer: always wear proper safety equipment. Furthermore, just because I did this doesn't mean that your local authorities would be tolerant of similar activities. Also, this is not a guide, but merely me showing how I did it, but not how you should do it, as microhydro installation types are unique to their location.
We just had a very large downpour, and I figured this would be interesting to you. I can put a bucket in the end right there, and it stops a lot of the water. So the rest of the water flows over the edge. And this is a lot of gallons per minute. This is a 4-gallon bucket. Crap. Let's try that again. Yeah, it fills out in a second, 2 seconds. I don't know. Faster than I can dump a 5-gallon bucket.
Get on with it. Yes, get on with it!
Now, after a caulk-fueled fury, I've gotten all the paddles caulked in. Focus. Can't really see it that well because it's clear. Huh. Who knew? I've been using my 1+1, my old cell phone, to record most of these videos, except for some of the stuff that happened in the basement. So, and the video quality's been kind of crappy. Out of focus, in focus, you know, some visual tearing. Audio's not great either, so I decided to break out my DSLR, which is not really worthy of being broken out. It's just a T2i. So let's switch to it now. I shut off the water so I'm not digging in a waterfall. And I have to dig this out of here so I can fit the water wheel in here. Furthermore, I have a lot of organic matter here and stuff that had eroded away from underneath the flume there. So I have a lot of loose material in here that I have to dig out that has raised the water level a few inches. That's better. I've already got a few more inches of head. I will have to maintain that, but I do it every year, so it's not that big of a deal. Dinner. This is not an ad, but I'm expressing my love for carbonated beverages myself. Some guys, they like to drink their favorite alcoholic beverage, but I've never really liked alcohol. So this is what does it for me. Back to work. I'm working on the cross rails here, and that's when I'm going to mount a 2x4, two 2x4s this way, and that's what the pillow blocks are going to mount to. Pillow blocks are bearings and housings. And I'm trying to figure out how deep I need to dig the holes to put my 2x6s in. And I have my wheel here. Focus. Focus, you fack. Do it. There, contrasty area. So I got my wheel here. That's a 32-inch height opening. This is a 28-inch wheel, but I want the wheel an inch below the top of the flume there. And I have everything laid out. The pillow block is 1.25 inches above the surface to center. So that's where I have these spaced out. Here's my 2x4 and my 2x6. And I'm just going to measure down here. So that's 21 and a half. So I need to dig the bottom of my holes to 22 and a half. And I'm just going to rest this pressure treated wood directly in the dirt. Oh, I forgot to add that I want to space the wheel out from this front face here about 3 inches. And that'll allow me to do some sort of chute. If I can experiment with the chute, making it like an abrupt cutoff or like a funnel. And I'm putting the wheel 1 inch below this so that I could maybe play with the escape trajectory of the water to see if it's going to escape flat or a little bit of a down motion. Just to see what's most efficient. Looks like we're going to be on hold today because I need to get longer 2x6s. These are the only scraps that I had here. There's that sucker that I was showing you earlier. I pulled him out just to show how big he is. About 5 inches long. So it's a new day. I got more wood here, and I need to see how long the new piece that I need to cut should be. So I know it has to be 15.5 inches down here, and also at least 14 inches back, about there. And I want the new piece to span all the way to the edge of the stream bank at the top of the board. Why? I don't know. Seems right. So this is pretty close, but I'll cut the new one at 59 inches. My boss did not like that. Even though the blade is sharp and new, cutting through very heavy pressure treated wood is apparently too much for it. Of course, one side is really easy and the other side is really hard. Screw it, I'm getting the axe. And before anybody asked, yes, I do have my steel-toed flip-flops on. .5, good. And the other side, good, perfect. And that's even pretty damn square with the flume. So now I got to do the other one, what, like 35, 36 inches away, 34. Like there. How about there? Yep. Dig it. This whole area around here was overgrown with viney dogwood, or I don't know. It's real hard to describe. But it just grew everywhere back here, and I cut it all down. It made my yard look bigger.
I guess I never described what I'm doing here, but I'm hatcheting out a stump.
I clearly dug too deep. And I'll explain why these are going in such a temporary manner at the end of the video. Now, I know I want the in-between parts to be 34 inches. So I'll cut those now. And then I have 2x4 hangers to mount these to the 2x6s. Could have brought my square, but this isn't critical. Flip it over. Probably gonna rain any minute. Perfect. And I have my hanger nails and hangers for this. And I can mark my centers, super scientifically. About there. And here. See a problem there? Yeah, if I put those on now, I wouldn't be able to get the wheel in. Unless I maybe went in from the side. Could I do that? Not really. Yeah. What am I gonna do? I guess I'll figure that out later. If I have to, I can just raise up this bit of flume, drop it in, and then set this guy back down. Hey, that's part of the reasons why I made it short, remember? Alright, we'll put these 2x4s in place now. With the wheel being 11 inches, I'll put these 12 inches apart. There's my middle 6 inches. And then I'll go 12 there. And right there. Same on this end. This is going to be a pain in the ass to build in place. So I'll pull it out build it and then put it in. Sorry you missed that part. The camera card was full. So I figured out what I'm gonna do. And I attached the hangers here. Guess I can't sit on these. And what I'll do is I won't attach these 2x4s. I'll just leave them unattached, and then when I get the wheel done, I'm going to mount the wheel to the 2x4s and then slide it in. And then drop the 2x4s into these brackets. Might have nailed that one a bit thin. Check for level, which doesn't really matter as long as it's level right there. And it's way off, of course. So I gotta raise that end a hair. A few hairs. And then just to keep it all from moving, I'm gonna screw a piece of wood across, probably on the far end. And that'll keep it somewhat stationary. I also need to make sure my height is okay here. 15 and a half, good. So that side's raised up enough. I gotta raise this side up some. Perfect. And then this extra 2x6 I can just attach there, and that'll keep it all from shifting, sort of mostly, while I'm fiddling with the water wheel. I hope this axle is long enough. Yes, it will be. So I'm going to have the sprocket on this end, all because it's the side closest to the house, so if I can, I can monitor it from the back porch. And also the shoreline's here, so it's a lot easier to, stand here and work on it. That side I'd have to stand on that board that I just screwed on. So I think I'm going to have to mount it as far that way as I can on these guys. And also I'll have to make sure that the spacing is correct in the middle here, about where the wheel's going to go, which is 12 and an 1/8. So now I can take these out. Things shouldn't move too much. And put my bearings on, and then mount the wheel. So I just mark the center line of the bearing, and that'll give me about a 1/4 inch clearance on the back side of it. And I can mount the bearings favoring the inboard side. Unfortunately, I only have 2 lag bolts, so I'll have to put 1 lag bolt on each side for now. this is the right spacing. I need at least 14 1/8, and that's 14 3/8. Perfect, giving me the 1/4 inch that I wanted. This is a P204 bearing, which is a swivel pillow block. So the alignment doesn't have to be perfect. This guy can move around so that my alignment is perfect. I'll just duplicate the other side. Forgot the washer. And these guys are a little bit short too, so I think I'll get some longer ones to replace these. While these are up here, I can grease them. Just 2 pumps for now until they get some rotation. I can also mount my adjustment blocks in place. These are Phillips 3. But that's okay for now. And people say, well, not people, like 1 or 2 of you will say, why not a back shot or breast shot or any one of those? And I'm like, well, then the wheel has to be literally twice as large, which is, I don't know, 4 times heavier. But this guy I can carry with one hand. So those are solidly in place. The minor issue I might have is needing a spacer to keep these spaced the correct distance away. Or the key will do that for me. Not exactly how they're intended to be used, but whatever. So here's my longer key and my shaft. And I can stick this in. Oh, you know what I should do first? spread grease all over this so it doesn't rust. Yeah, that's a smart thing to do. Come on. There we go. So this replacement shaft that I got, it's actually from McMaster Car, which is the same place I got all the little screws for the paddles. And I'm quite happy with their service. If I need hardware, I might get it from them again. You know, specialized hardware like this stuff. Alright, this will be the short side. Which will get this bearing, so I can go through some more. And that key will be just about the right length. Although hopefully not too long. That would kind of suck. I'll line that up on both sides. I hope it's going to be like 14 and a 16th. Or 12 and a 16th. And it is! So that keyway is the right length, barely. And I have clearance on the back side. And I have shaft sticking out on this side for the sprocket. So I think this is ready to be dropped in. Kind of heavy. Wish I had another hand here. Oh, that side's on. And it's too high. What did I do wrong here? Huh? Oh. Okay. Well, it looks like I have to dig down everything 2 more inches. Screwed up. Also, I think in the future I'll leave this board in place and I'll just slip the axle through. And this guy went for a swim. Yeah, what I forgot to do is, I don't know why I didn't remember this. I mean, the last video that I was taking these measurements was 2 days ago, but I forgot that the 2x4 is getting mounted to the top. So this has to be down an additional 2 inches. So 16.5 would be a better number. I had wondered why I had to add so much dirt underneath each piece. And that's because I had screwed up. So now it's a lot better at 16.5 heavy. And I can put the wheel in. Because I know it'll fit now, I hope. Actually, let's measure. 15 and a hair. And my wheels, geez, I can't remember this. 14.5. So yeah, it'll fit now. And I learned from putting it on the first time that what I need to do is take off this far stretcher. Stay. Slip it in, that bearing, and then put the other stretcher on, I think. And I've got clearance underneath it. Might have to dig out some dirt here so it's not fouling the gear sprocket. The wheel is narrower than the flume. Right now, just to make it work, I might screw in some pieces of plywood to direct the water over it properly. In an effort to keep it simple, stupid, instead of doing any sort of flashing or anything, I just cut these triangles 2x6 that I'll put there. And that'll narrow the water stream. But I have to pre-drill these. Or should I screw them from the outside? That'd be a heck of a lot easier. Let's screw them from the outside. It's going in crooked. So now the water will be forced out of a narrower slot. And one of the last things I have to do here is, well, maybe add spacers, but also tighten down the set screws here for the bearings. This one? Yes, it is. And I do have to use the T-handle because that's the more leverage method of those bent Allens is I can't get it over the bearing housing. These bearings were pretty dry from the factory. Now they're not. No, not backwards. And that'll go faster as the water level in the dam equalizes. Even though the flume is like level, when I open the trap door, it doesn't have all of the resistance of the flume to flow down. So a lot of it drains out when I open the hatch. Let's try adding a little bit of resistance. Well, that's not a very scientific method of adding resistance. And we can also see that because of the paddle shape, it's kind of bouncing the water off instead of capturing it. But if it's slowed down a hair, then the water gets captured. And I'm not worried about that. And from the back porch, this would be my view. Me likey. Also, the sound is pretty cool. Now, one thing I could do for the sound, instead of that continuous pitter-patter, is I can... Let's zoom out of here, huh? Yeah, there we go. I can add a sort of diagonal piece that's offset by the spacing of the paddles, and that'll reduce any sound. You know, that versus that. I mounted the sprocket, and the last thing to check is how many volts I'm going to get on my motor here. And, you know, I'm afraid it's not going to be enough. Let me just slow this down or stop it so I can get the chain on. Come on. I'm just holding this by hand. Unfortunately, the chain doesn't want to stay on that great. I have to have the motor perfectly aligned. .3 volts. Not quite enough to be useful.
So 6 volts isn't really enough to do anything with, unless you're trying to charge a 6-volt battery or something that's USB powered. So doing 12 volts is kind of hard, because I don't really have a large enough wheel to overcome any reduction, friction, and I don't have enough head or flow for any other sort of higher RPM turbine types. It kind of sucks, because I'm at the bottom of the economic range of what's reasonable with this size of setup, which means that you probably shouldn't do something that's as small as this either. I could spend $40 on a motor or alternator or generator, however you want to call it, better suited for this low RPM, but everything I find is liable to burn up because they are rated for extremely low power. What I'm talking about is the kids' toys or hand crank generators. Those wouldn't last a day. Other things that might work are like a wind blue alternator, but the RPM is just not high enough, and they're pretty expensive. Why would I do that for a maximum of 50 watts? I could then use a charge controller to run the power to the basement, where I could potentially use the power. But that doesn't really make sense because of the low amount of power that's being made. And we don't have any other similar complementary systems in our house. We only use grid power. It just kind of sucks because nothing's economical. Well, excepting my YouTube revenue. I've more than paid for my entire project and time with my YouTube proceeds. And now I have something unfortunate to reveal, which explains a lot about how temporary the installation is. We are listing the property for sale, which explains the slow progress on this project. I've been getting this property ready for sale all summer, and soon I'll be finishing the inside of our next property, which is going to be a net zero ready house. You can see a picture of the wall profile here. This has, it's going to have like R40 walls and R60 or 70 insulation in the attic. It's gonna sip power, and I'm really excited for it. And I think, but I'm not sure, I'll be releasing a whole video series on that too. So it's temporary because I don't know if the next owners are going to want it. I had to make it such that it could very easily be removed. I could take the parts and install them somewhere else. Believe it or not, I do actually have a few other potential opportunities for that. my aunt's house, my parents' house, or even the new property, but it doesn't quite have uh, as much flow. But it has a lot more head, and potentially like immense amounts of head pressure. I'm talking 260 feet of head at 20 gallons per minute, I think it was, which is good for like 600 watts or somewhere about there. I recorded a video a few years ago just prospecting it, and that was a summer video. Obviously, winter flows would be a lot higher. The only unfortunate thing about that is I don't own the property that it's a spring, that the spring comes out of. So I'd have to either get permission from the property owner or buy the property, which isn't unreasonable. I mean, it sort of is, but yeah, I don't know. We'll see. That's in the future. If I was to do this again, and in a more permanent manner, I would keep everything up to the water wheel the same, except maybe the flume supports. I'd install proper concrete piers. As for the water wheel, I'd love to have either a CNC machine to route out the sides, or make it more accurately with templates. I should have just given it more thought when I was doing it. Also, I would use a simpler bucket mounting method, probably just little routed slots that I could drop the bucket paddles into. The barrel body works great, but it's a bit small to make any real power, unless you have like a really wide wheel with large buckets and a lot of flow. Fabricating some of the components out of steel would have been nice too, especially adjustable hubs, but I didn't have any of those tools or friends with those tools. I should have mounted the water wheel between the flume rails. That is, I should have left the last section of flume the full length and removed the floor on the last third. I then would have mounted the bearings on supports that hung down from the flume with the alternator above the flume on similar supports. Please like, comment, and subscribe. If you don't like the video, please give it a thumbs down. And tell me why in the comments. You can also check out my Twitter feed, which frankly doesn't have a whole lot on it, and my website, which is joemalovich.com.
Well, we got some rain, and I'm sort of load testing it. I just have my shovel jammed in there to add some resistance to see what it's doing. If I add more resistance, you can really see the water splashing back. That's pretty interesting to me. And unloaded, it's still running pretty fast.